Gridiron 360. Bill and Dave back on it. Thank you for listening. We are wrapping up the 2020 NFL Draft prospects from the Big Ten outside of the top 12 overall coming out of this conference. These are other names of note. We've ran through all the offense. We're wrapping up the defense here with linebackers, safeties, and cornerbacks. So we'll go to linebacker first, and a name you probably, he will get drafted, and probably early, maybe not first round, but second, third. This is an outside linebacker out of Florida, played for the Michigan Wolverines, redshirt junior Mr. Josh Uche at 6'1", 245, 33 5/8-inch arms, 9.5-inch hands. Tell me about Mr. Uche, Dave. His name's starting to pop up as we near closer to the draft on Thursday.
Yeah, here's the one thing you gotta say about Michigan that we talked about. We talked about some of their failings on offense, between their quarterback. We talked about their receiver, and just kind of how they just never really put it together. They had some decent running backs this year. I don't know that if I look at them as prolific, but, they ran the ball fairly well. What's the kid number 24? Why am I blanking on his name? The running back.
Oh, gosh. It'll come to me. Go ahead.
But anywho, but the point is they did actually put together a pretty good defense this year. So you gotta give them that. This kid is, he came off the edge and had a good chunk of sacks this year. He's pretty athletic. He's actually a pretty stout guy at 6'1", 245. For an outside linebacker. I just don't know that, you project him off the edge in a 3-4, but he could. 245 is not too small, but it is on the smaller end of that type of pass rusher. Interesting thing, I'd have to look up why. I'm not sure why he only started 9 of the what did they have, 13 games this year, I think. But he was second team all-conference in the Big Ten. There's some good linebackers. We've already talked about guys like Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. So there's some good guys out there, some guys playing at Penn State that get in there. So I think, you got to like the pedigree. You got to like the way the defense played this year. I was impressed by them at times. Just that sputtering offense is what always kind of made you kind of go, about Michigan.
Yeah, and so, that hurts. That hurts, makes – a guy like, just imagine if they were the best team in the Big Ten this year and represented in the college football playoff, then this guy might be even higher. Because right now, like I told you before we jumped on here, he's ahead of Anthony Jennings at the outside linebacker. Yep. He's coming in right. You got Isaiah. You got Chase on if you're putting him at outside. You just got Patrick. We've talked about Patrick Queen and Zach Bond, and then there's Uche.
Yeah, the good part about him is, his projections that he's actually surprisingly athletic in coverage, which you would think at 245 you would start, especially at 6'1", because, we're talking about a fire plug kind of guy. You would think that he might struggle in coverage, which then would make him more one-dimensional. But if this kid can go out and cover, he's a good tackler, very sound in his tackling, and he's explosive. You can't get those kind of sacks without some level of explosion and step. So you start to add those things, and that, again, where I think the linebacker position, and we're separating this guy out of the edge group, and maybe that's more his projection, but
it's all over the board nowadays.
Well, because that's probably
the
most,
way it is.
That's the most, besides that tweener safety, safety to linebacker that has kind of evolved in the the 4-2-5 type schemes and that kind of stuff. That is probably that edge, whether you're an edge or a 4-3 linebacker, outside linebacker, that kind of stuff you've seen a lot of fluctuation in a lot of guys that kind of fit different skill sets. This kid, again, I like a guy that just goes out there and plays with a little bit of explosion. And, at that size, he doesn't worry me.
Yeah.
I think this kid's got some potential there, to do something in the NFL as opposed to just kind of being a special teams.
Yeah. What do you think? Round 2, round 3? Where do you think he'll go?
I've seen some rejections in round 2. I guess.
I think because some of the guys that they have above him are like projected to be going first round, that may be the reason. There's going to be a run on guys in this position. It's deep, but there's going to be a run because there is some talent up the top of the board at this position.
I think
So as a result, you may get to the second round and need a linebacker.
Well,
You're
I think
like, okay.
it depends on your system, but it also depends on how they view deploying him. I mean, do I think he goes second round? As somebody looked at him as like as a 4-3 linebacker? Probably not, because I don't know that the outside linebackers are quite valued like a guy that can play in a 3-4 and maybe give you a little bit of work off the edge, or whether somebody in a 4-3 thinks that they can situationally move him down to pass rush. Again, there's so much versatility in defenses these days, trying to stay up on the offenses, that it just really depends, I think, on how somebody gets him. I think he's definitely got, I would say, if he slipped to like the fourth round, I would be surprised. I would say he could be a second rounder, or he could slide into the third. It's hard to tell. Again, we're not getting a lot of intel about how this is going to go. Somewhere there's going to be a run, and usually we have a pretty good idea because there's all the talk that starts to happen.
Right.
I'm just not sure where that's going to be. I mean, God, I'm starting to hear inklings that Tua is not even a top 10 draft pick.
Wow.
Now, I think that's might be smoke and mirrors, but it's just, you start to hear crazy crap right now.
Yep. All right, let's move to Penn State, and a kid from Burtonsville, Maryland, a senior linebacker, inside linebacker, Cameron Brown. Now, this guy is like when we had talked, I think in the HCC cast, I said, the freak, we were talking about the edge rushers from Syracuse who were on the board, other names of note. And the conversation I had was when we prepared for Syracuse, one of the things that stood out to me wasn't the edge rushers. The year before it was, but it was these freakish size linebackers.
Yeah.
This guy is one of them, 6'5". I mean, that's enormous at linebacker. 233, has 34-inch arms. He's got a wingspan, 9.5-inch hands. Ran a 4.72 at the combine. Another member of a defense that this year their claim to fame in a league of kind of, as we say, ground and pound, most part, a very fast defense.
Yeah, he's I mean, I liked what I saw out of him in that Penn State defense. Penn State had a pretty good front, though. So he was kept a little cleaner. Here's the thing about him. At 238 is not light for a linebacker anymore in the middle. I mean, you look at Roquan Smith. Again, I use him just because I know off the top of my head, but he's not very tall. Roquan's like 6'1". This guy's 6'5", so he's stringy. And like you said, he's got really long arms. I think at that size, playing in the interior, at that height, you're going to have they're going to have to throw some meat on this guy.
Yeah.
Like that. I think that's going to be his big thing, is if he wants to be more than just kind of a specialty kind of guy. He plays, he does play downhill. He does hit, but he's just wiry middle linebackers are not very common.
Right.
And in either an inside linebacker
Again,
and a 3-4.
That's freakish. Could you imagine seeing a 6'5" guy, back there? I mean, that'd be weird.
Yeah, I mean, but you look at it, and I always looked at Urlacher, and I thought Urlacher was decently sized, but he was 6'4", and he was 255. But he didn't, like Ray Lewis, looked like he was chiseled out of granite. Like, Urlacher, to me, didn't look as bulky, but he was still 255. But my point is, trying to look at the body type, like he just 238 on a 6'5" frame, which is an inch taller,
wiry,
is
like
going to
you
be
said.
real thin. It's just, I mean, that to me, I don't even know what. God, it's almost like, is he a tight end?
Yeah, crazy. All right, another guy. This guy's from Keysport, PA, senior for the Michigan Wolverines, and he plays outside linebacker. Kaliki Hudson, 5'11", 224. Real small arms. I mean, 29 3/8, 10-inch, but big mitts, 10-inch hands. Ran a 4.56 at the combine. Threw up
Circus Carney.
Yeah. 30 reps on the bench.
Oh, yeah.
Strong dude. Looking at, just some of his statisticals. Had a couple sacks this past year. 45 solo tackles. 102 total tackles. Tackling machine. 3 passes defensed. A little more of the size of a linebacker that you expect, the expected size of a linebacker, I should say.
Yeah, he's a converted safety. I I don't know. I just feel like this guy is just in between somewhere where
Well,
I mean, I like that, the guy's got a ton of tackles, so obviously he's a player that way. This guy just screams special teams to me at best. I already see problems with guys in the 230s sometimes at linebacker. I mean, being 224, I don't know.
5'11".
Yeah, and I mean, and if they're pushing you to linebacker at that size,
that's 50 pounds heavier than I am at my
what
size.
Did you say? Did you say he ran?
4.56?
It's not terrible.
No. It's not terrible, but I don't know. I don't want to, I don't know a ton about Mr. Hudson, but, that's why we want to give, when we don't know too much, we certainly want to drop the basic statistical so you can, make your own decision.
Yeah, here you go. The guy went to Michigan, and he's got like a Mickey Mouse body.
Yeah. All right, last guy, and he's not as high up, but it is a guy who I feel like his name was called a lot. Certainly, I said when we were looking over this board, God, Herb Street seemed to call this guy's name out a lot. This gentleman is from DeSoto, Texas, a senior for the Wisconsin Badgers. Chris Orr, 6 foot 224. He had 478 total tackles this year, 42 solo, 11.5 sacks, a couple forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 5 passes defensed. So you see probably why he got talked about a lot when, if Game Day Crew was covering a Wisconsin game, because he does a lot of things outside of just tackling as a linebacker that can show up on tape.
Yeah, I mean, he's not even on the bottom edge of prototypical. He is below that, and I think that's what's going to hurt him.
Yes.
If you look at his statistics, I mean, not very impressive in his first – well, he must have redshirted 2016. Not very impressive. Actually went down in tackles every year, but then on 2019 just exploded. Like you said, 11.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 78 total tackles. I mean, he was everywhere. He was noticeable. But you also have to consider the fact that you had a strong defense, and there are guys that can stand out in college that just don't quite have that next level ability. I can think of guys, as a Florida State fan, I can think of guys who I always loved, how hard they played, how well they played. Always kind of stood out to me, but then when it came to the pros, they just didn't have it. You worry that that's a one-year aberration, that he had that great year. I don't want to say that he didn't, because I agree with you. I liked Wisconsin. I watched him play. He was a cleanup tackler, which is why he had 78 tackles. I mean, the guy just knew how to, somebody popped a guy and knocked him back, he would clean up the tackle.
Yeah.
So he was sure in that way. I remember him well for that. Always around the ball. Just not sure that he's NFL grade, though. I mean, I think his statistics, 6 foot, 224 is, or what'd you say, 228 or whatever.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's pretty light.
All right, let's move on to the safeties, my friend. We're jumping right at it. And then, mind you, there's a handful of other guys. I've got Marcus Bailey, Joe Bocci, Kamal Martin. There's a few other guys out of this conference coming out, but we're going to keep this tight here. So safeties, we got 2 guys we want to talk about, and then there are another 2, 4, 5 guys coming out. But these 2 guys I just want to drop really quick. And this young man, safety, senior from Lanham, Maryland, played for the Terps, Mr. Antoine Brooks Jr., 5'11", 220, 31 1/8 inch arms, 9 1/4 inch hands, ran a 4.64 at the combine, threw up 18 reps. Late round projection probably for Mr. Brooks. There are a lot of safeties, I feel like, in this class. He had 85 tackles, 67 solos, 1 pick, 5 passes defense, fumble recovery. So this guy, I think, I remember watching Maryland early on in the year, and when their defense got out there, and granted, it was against poorer competition. I think a couple were even D2 schools, but his name was called a few times as being just, you could see him he was just noticeable at safety. He was one of those safeties that seems to be very active. So, this is a deep class at safety as well as at cornerback. If he gets picked up, it'll probably be, I think he'll get picked up. It'll be late, I think, maybe like, 6th round.
Yeah,
last round.
It's interesting. Some of his, what I'm reading here from the combine, which is kind of interesting, is not good enough to play single high, which makes sense. I wouldn't think of a guy that's 5'11", 220 playing single high safety. But they talked about split safeties. I don't know how much cover 2 you see on a regular basis. So I was thinking of him more down in the box, and they give him a decent grade playing in the box. But I would have expected something better. I mean, 220 is a sizable safety from a weight perspective, from durability. I would have thought, he would have had a little bit more to show for that.
He'll get drafted. I just feel like it's not going to be on the first, certainly not, 3 days, but 4 or 5, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. And then the other guy we want to talk about at safety from the Big Ten that is coming out is from Farmington Hills, Michigan, a senior, played for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's see. He played corner, it looks like there, but he is being listed as a safety. Michael Ojemudia. 6'1", 200 pounds, 32 quarter-inch arms. Itty-bitty hands. 8 and 7/8 inch hands. Ran a 4.45.
Jazz hands.
Yay! He's listed on a lot of boards in the safety rankings below a guy like Brooks, but I just think his size might attract people, and he may end up getting drafted before him. But still, I think a later round guy. And one thing I can say is Iowa the past few years has put together a group of pretty good guys coming out of their secondary going into the NFL. Maybe not unbelievable, but solid players.
Yeah, I mean, he put up some decent stats for a guy that with the projection that he has. I mean, the 4.45 speed, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
coming out of the safety.
Again, he was a corner, I think, at Iowa.
Yeah, he's definitely light on the safety aspect. I would imagine if anybody envisions him, he would be playing the free or something to that effect because he's a little bit undersized to be coming into the box too much. But he had 9 pass breakups, 3 interceptions this year. I mean, that's solid stuff. And 52 tackles. Scares me a little bit. You get 52 tackles on the back end like that. Well, actually, and since you said he was playing corner this year, but he was, there's something there to it. I'm kind of reading through it. It seems like he's, he's got some skill there. I think he gets drafted. They're saying 4th, 5th round. That sounds about right. Maybe a little later than that with some of the depth there. But here's a kid that's got a chance. And, you get drafted. Most teams are going to hold on to all their draft picks through a year. So he's got a year to kind of show some value. And, again, safety is a good position that can get out on special teams, too, if you got the right attitude.
Yeah. And like I said, again, there's about another 5 safeties from the Big Ten outside of these guys and the guys that were, listed in the top 12 that are coming out of the Big Ten. So let's jump right into cornerbacks and wrap up this Big Ten combo.
Sounds good.
All right. These guys, I do want to, we'll tighten it up here so it's not too long. Actually, we'll stop it here and we'll start again and we'll talk a little bit about corner because there are at least the first 4 guys are. Yeah, I mean, like corner, people draft a lot of corners, so
yeah,
and this is pretty deep. It goes deep, but like at least the first 4 guys are top 20 in terms of corners in this year's draft. So we will wrap it up there. See you on the gridiron. Bye.